Diddy is on the run, so we need to circle back to our Diddy conversation. You guys, I hope, caught our two-part series, Diddy and the shocking truth about hip-hop. I think it's all relevant, obviously, this week with Diddy being raided by Homeland Security and the FBI, allegedly involved in a sex trafficking scandal. We're going to dig back into P. Diddy today on Fearless. Welcome to Fearless with Jason Whitlock. I'm Jason Whitlock, your host. Thank you for joining me today. I don't join you today with any glee. I'm actually sad. I really am sad about what's going on with Sean Puffy Combs or Sean P. Diddy Combs or whatever he's calling himself this weekend. Obviously, we did some shows last week that were well-timed, and I'm glad we had that discussion. It gives us a foundation to continue the discussion as Diddy apparently is on the run or in major trouble based off this investigation. We're going to climb back into this conversation. Shemeka Michelle and Delano Squires are going to help me climb back into this conversation. It's important, and there's some realizations that people are going to have to come to about Diddy and about hip-hop. We're so thankful we laid that foundation last week, and now we have an opportunity to double back and reaffirm some of our positions and expound on some of our positions. This episode is brought to you by our good friends at Good Ranchers. Fall in love with beef, chicken, seafood all over again by subscribing at goodranchers.com. Use my code FEARLESS to get $150 worth of free chicken wings for a year, plus $20 off with your subscription. Thank you, Good Ranchers, for making this show, today's show, and all the shows in the future a possibility. You guys need to support Good Ranchers because they support us. The other thing you guys can do is go to blazetv.com/fearless, use the promo code FEARLESS, and you can save $20 on your yearly Blaze subscription. So I'm freelancing my thoughts today about Diddy. And you know, our theme for today is Gone Diddy. And, you know, it's a play off the movie Gone Girl. But Diddy's on the run. And the question I'm asking is, are we going to join him on the run? Because what Diddy, perhaps, in hiding or wherever his plane may have flown to, it's like Diddy wants to avoid the truth about his existence, his installment in the music industry, his role in the music industry. He wants to run away from accountability for the wickedness that he's been involved in. So that's why our theme is Gone Diddy. But the bigger question that we're going to ask today is, are we going to go on the run with him? Are we going to ignore, try to escape accountability for our role in all the things Diddy is involved in? All across the internet, people are making fun of Diddy and having a great time making fun of Diddy. 50 Cent has put out some content over the past few days and today that's incredibly funny, and I get it. There's humor here. But I think we need to quit laughing because the actual joke is on us, all of us that have been in denial about what hip-hop and commercial rap music actually is. The joke's on us. We made Diddy an icon. We put him in position to potentially be, according to the rumors, the allegations, if you believe TMZ, if you believe all the people reporting, We put him in position to be the Jeffrey Epstein of hip hop, of the rap music world, of the music industry. We turned him into this respected, iconic figure. And we've done it across the board with many of these rappers. That's what we did as fans, as consumers, as people. And I'm going to narrow down the focus here. And I know it's going to irritate people, but I just got to be honest about what we did. And when I say we, I'm including myself. Huge fan of hip hop. Friends know many rap artists. Been to many rap concerts. Used to write stories about the rap industry, promoting the rap industry. I'm not removing myself from this. But as we narrow down the focus, we have to ask ourselves as Black people in particular, we allowed hip hop to define us. We sat around comfortable as rap music and hip hop became Black culture. And so everybody wants to crack jokes on Diddy. And you remember the movie Scarface? And Tony Montana, Al Pacino's character, he's at the restaurant scene, he's with his wife, and you know, he's liquored up and high, and he gives this great speech, and there go the bad guy. You guys like to look at me and say, there go the bad guy. And he made it a point to say, no, you're actually the bad guy, and I just make you comfortable so you don't have to examine yourself. If Diddy were doing a movie scene today, or if they ever make a movie about Diddy, they should include that scene. They should have Diddy out to dinner and saying, yeah, y'all blame me, I'm the bad guy. You don't want to deal with what I and your love of me says about you. And many of you, I didn't love Diddy. I never liked Diddy. Did you love Snoop? Do you love Jay-Z? Did you idolize Suge Knight? Do you right now to this day think Tupac Shakur is some kind of spiritual revolutionary figure? Have you not promoted this wicked form of music that promotes violence and every form of degeneracy and debauchery known to man? And so you can run around right now, oh, there go the bad guy, it's Diddy. I'm actually a good guy. I'm removed from that. 50 Cent been telling us about Diddy for years. 50 Cent been telling you about 50 Cent for years? See, you think, or will you continue to go for the okie-doke that now 50 Cent's actually one of the good guys? He's different from Diddy. Jay-Z, he's one of the good guys. He's different than Diddy. Snoop, good guy. He's different from Diddy. None of these people are different. It's like what you're talking about is a degree of pregnancy. And there are no degrees of pregnancy. Either you're pregnant or you're not. Now, you may be in your 9th month of pregnancy and someone else may be in their 4th month, but that 4th month of pregnancy leads to the 9th month of pregnancy. And so just because, oh, well, Jay-Z, he didn't do what Diddy did. Now, he may have participated in it. His music may have celebrated and been a part of a culture that allowed Diddy to do what he did, but he didn't do what Diddy did. He was just a little bit pregnant. There is no little bit pregnant. Either you are or you aren't. And so perhaps you want to hop on an airplane. You want to go gone Diddy just like Diddy. I'm saying no, 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 no. We all have to come to grips with what we allow. And I'm talking about particularly my generation. I'm talking about and I'm talking about all of us, whether you just listen to a little bit of it or a lot of it. We ushered all of this in. And when I look at myself and I go, man, when I got straight out of Compton, and I think it was 1988, 1989, I'm at Ball State's campus, I went and, oh man, you got to hear Gangsta Gangsta. You got to hear this NWA. You got to hear this music. I was spreading that heroin, that drug, just like everybody else. And I put these radical materialists and all their money and wealth and all their debauchery, I put it on a pedestal and thought they were the cool guys. And again, and there was part of me, it's part of my record, I've long criticized these guys for decades. I've criticized the music. But I'm not exonerated just because while I was ingesting Ronald McDonald's and everybody could see the double cheeseburger and all the grease from the French fries all over my face, just because I was telling you while I was consuming the French fries and double cheeseburgers, hey, this is actually bad for you, but boy, is it fun. Meet me at Mickey D's. That doesn't exonerate me. And you're not exonerated either. And I don't want anyone to hear this and think that I'm totally singling out black people. Because this entire culture, and trust me, we're going to get into it on this show moving forward. Not today, but moving forward, we're going to get into it about all of this nihilistic music. All of this nihilistic music. It's not just singled in on rap, but rap has certainly been at the forefront of it, and it certainly has been the most nihilistic or just clearly nihilistic music, I think, in the history of music. And again, just because I'm saying it's more nihilistic doesn't mean I'm saying the other stuff isn't just as harmful. They're all gateway drugs. But we'll get into it from grunge music and Kurt Cobain to the Beatles and rock. We're going to address all of it, not today, but if you keep watching Fearless, we're going to dive into all of this stuff. But today, because Diddy's in the news, I'm asking us to examine our thoughts on the entire commercial rap music industry. Are we going to come up out of our denial and accept that this form of music is a poison? The way it's been produced, the way it's been commercialized, the way it's been promoted, the way it's been mainstream, the way it dominates and smothers out any form of rap music that actually has a positive message. The question today is, are we going to run away from our accountability? Are we going to run away from a realization of what this music is by playing a game of, well, what about Brett Favre? What about Donald Trump? What about Jeffrey Epstein? Because that's where this is going to go. I think we have another over the shoulder that connects Diddy and Jeffrey Epstein, and I love it. Menace to Society. This is great. Because this will be the other play that's made is, well, you know, they're just signaling out Diddy. We don't know who was on the Jeffrey Epstein client list. How come no one's gone to jail other than Epstein and the Ghislaine Maxwell or whatever, and we don't know everybody on that list, and they're covering up, and they're just going to use Diddy as a distraction to distract away from X, Y, and Z. We're going to come up with every excuse in the world not to deal with what Diddy and this sex trafficking and all this gay sex and all this gay blackmail and abuse of young people. We want to deny what it all says about commercial rap music. And then we'll go to, you know, well, why are you calling out Diddy? How come you ain't calling out Liar Cohen and Jerry Heller and Clive Davis? everybody that watches this show, did we not name them all last week over the course of 2 days? Did we not front and center the shareholders of the whole BlackRock Vanguard analogy? We didn't leave anything off the table. And we're not, as we cover this Diddy story, because it's going to be in the news for quite some time, we're not going to leave anything off the table. But we're also not going to allow you to lie to yourself and pretend like we didn't invite this, we didn't promote this, we didn't say, man, this rap music and Snoop Dogg and Birdman and Lil Wayne and Ice Cube and NWA and Biggie and Tupac, we didn't run out and say, oh, that is black, that's black culture, that's us. We did that. And then we allowed people to say, if you're against the radical materialism displayed in commercial rap music, if you're against the black on black violence displayed in commercial rap music, if you object to the sexualization and denigration of women in rap music, if you object to the drug dealing and the violence promoted in commercial rap music, we allowed ourselves and others to say, well, you're racist if you object to any of that. We allowed people to justify a poisonous form of music that has poisoned our culture, has jeopardized the safety of young people, have sexualized and convinced young people you should spend most of your life high, just like Snoop Dogg. Snoop Dogg is great. Dr. Dre is great. Eminem is great. Be high. Don't be educated. Don't learn to present yourself in a respectful manner. Be like the commercial, gangster, ignorant, debaucherous, evil, satanic, wicked rappers who have made video after video saying that they cut deals with Satan. Go watch Snoop Dogg's Murder Was the Case. The man put out a video, I cut a deal with the devil. And we pretend like he's one of the good guys. He's someone people should look up to. Are you going to join Diddy in denial, or are you going to move over into reality and admit that we have a problem that must be confronted? That's what we'll discuss on today's episode of Fearless. We'll do it with Shemeka Michelle and Delano Squires. Before I get to Shemeka Michelle, I want to talk to you about one of our great sponsors who allows us to do shows like this today, and it's Prize Picks. Whether it's tournament season or the race for the playoff home court, cash in on basketball's big moments with Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. Just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projections, and place your entry. Turn $10 into $1,000 with just 4 correct picks. You can choose from traditional stats like Steph Curry, more or less than on points, or more unique ones like Kevin Durant, more or less on dunks. Easy gameplay, quick withdrawals, and injury insurance on your picks are what make Prize Picks America's #1 fantasy sports app. Join the Prize Picks community of more than 3 million users who have already signed up. My mom, you guys know she likes to gamble, is a big basketball fan. She sent me some of her basketball picks she's selecting for today. Chris Middleton, more than 5.5 assists versus the Lakers. Steph Curry, more than 3.5 3-pointers versus the Heat. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, did I say his middle name right? Shai Alexander, more than 1.5 steals versus the Pelicans. Right now, Prize Picks will match your first deposit of up to $100. Just download the Prize Picks app and use code FEARLESS. That's code FEARLESS on Prize Picks for a first deposit match of up to $100. Prize Picks. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Must be present in certain states. Visit prizepicks.com for restrictions and details. Prize Picks. Daily fantasy sports made easy. All right, don't go anywhere. Shemeka Michelle, next. Hello, Fearless Army. I'm Jason Whitlock, your leader. I'm going to spend 2024 discussing growth and sacrifice. Hard times are here. Harder times are coming. What has stopped American growth and caused a regression in fundamental freedoms and values? A lack of sacrifice. Our ancestors sacrificed for our benefit. We have not sacrificed to protect the progress they died for. No sacrifice, no freedom. What impedes man's willingness to sacrifice? His ignorance, his perversion, his pride, his ingratitude, and his cowardice, his rejection of God. The Bible is a story about the power and the necessity of sacrifice. Sacrifice is the sun, rain, and fertilizer of growth. Growth is our life purpose. Grow in the knowledge, wisdom, fear, obedience, and reverence to the Most High. Growth requires sacrifice will be our theme for Roll Call 2.0 this summer, June 1, right back here in Nashville. We're excited to welcome you. Let me spend a minute explaining what GROWTH actually stands for us in the Fearless Army. The G is for game plan. In order to properly grow, it's essential we work from the strategic game plan spelled out in the Bible. The R, responsibility. As we grow as men, we understand and accept our responsibilities to God, family, and teammates. The O, ownership. We embrace ownership of our destiny. Outsiders do not determine our fate. The W, wisdom. We honor, value, and share the wisdom imparted to us by elders, coaches, and leaders. The T, trust. We must be worthy of trust. The reliability of a man's word defines him far more than popularity and material possessions. The H, humility. The reward for humility and fear of the Lord is riches and honor and life. That's straight from Proverbs 22:4. Come join us in Nashville as we talk about growth and sacrifice and how without sacrifice there will be no growth. Roll Call 2.0 right here in Nashville, Saturday, June 1st. All right, welcome back. Time for some Shemeka. Let's roll out to North Carolina, bring Shemeka into the conversation. Shemeka, I want to start here as it relates to Diddy, because it's already happening a bit on social media. I think we're going to see some people try to turn Diddy into a victim, and because they're going to go about the what about movement is about to kick in. And it's already kicking in a bit. And so I'm wondering if you sense the same thing, that at some point Diddy's going to transition into a victim in all of this.
Yeah, I've already seen a lot of people in the comments on the Shade Room and Spiritual World saying, what about Trump? You know, how is it that Trump is able to walk around free and they're raiding Diddy's house? And it really makes me angry, but it pushes your point that so many of us are just caught up in race, because these are two different things. If in fact Diddy was involved in sex trafficking, he needs to be punished for that. We don't have those charges against President Trump. So I'm not sure why people are trying to actually equate the two. They are not the same. And it just makes me mad that as a people, we are so caught up in race that we would even care to actually defend this man if this is true. And I've seen that they actually had to have probable cause to raid his home like that, not just suspicion. So there is a reason that the Department of Homeland Security actually raided this man's homes, not just, because of maybe they heard or hearsay. They had to have probable cause.
Shemeka, I'm going to slightly push back. I don't think the defense of Diddy is solely about race. I think that there is a widespread denial of hip hop's negative influence and negative role in American culture. And so what I see is a defense of hip hop, because hip hop has become to define Black culture. So I guess I am somewhat agreeing with you in terms of like race is a big part of this, because we've allowed hip hop to define Black culture. And so there's some people many people don't want to deal with the truth about hip hop that's being exposed through Diddy, because anybody with a brain has to at some point realize, like, man, didn't I just see Dre and 50 and Snoop Dogg on national TV examining Jimmy Kimmel's penis? Haven't I listened to their music where Snoop Dogg is talking about having his nuts on the tonsil of Luther Campbell? Man, this is prison culture, but I've been pretending like it's this revolutionary music that's really just the CNN and telling you what's going on in the hood. And Diddy is making me have to deal with, like, nah, this is a gay sex cult and it's installing prison culture and we're just not gonna do it. And so we're gonna start going, what about Brett Favre? What about Donald Trump? What about, I don't know, Axl Rose? I'm trying to kind of rock stars or whatever. What about
Presley.
the rock and roll industry? Yeah, Elvis, yeah, what about Elvis Presley? Yes. I think it's a defense of hip hop.
Yeah, it definitely is. But who are I know we like to say, oh, white people are the main people that buy hip hop. And this may be true, but we are the ones that actually eat, sleep, and breathe the culture of hip hop. We used to say that this was art imitating life. Now, what is it now? Because you have Diddy, who is a millionaire, living this way. And it just doesn't make sense. If this is art imitating life, shouldn't you be pushing something else? Shouldn't you be pushing the fact that you excelled and you became successful? A lot of them still live in these gated communities and push murder on these kids these youth that are listening to them every day. You're not selling drugs. You're not gangbanging, but yet this is what you're pushing to these kids who listen to you each and every day, who do live in the hood, who do have to worry about bullets flying every single day. And it's just not right. And so this is mostly, I have to put the blame at the feet of these Black men who sign up to do this. And we can push that group that we say, oh, they allow this music to come out, but we have to be willing participants. They aren't the ones rapping. They aren't the ones singing this type of music. It's Black people signing up to be the tap dancers. So we have to lay this at their feet and say, hey, what's going on? And why are you participating in these types of issues when you know what it's doing to little Black boys and girls all across the country? So I blame Black people, and it just is what it is. They're the ones pushing this. They're the ones promoting it. They're the ones participating, and we are the ones seeing the death culture the way that we are. We aren't seeing little Billy Bob shooting Bobby the way that we are Tyrone and Pookie. They're killing each other every single day.
And so, Shemeka, the What About movement is going to go exactly where you're predicting. It's going to be, hey, why won't you guys talk about the Jewish people at the top of the music industry? That's going to be their argument. And I'm going to direct them to, hey, Thursday and Friday, we did two-hour shows where we called out Clive Davis, we called out Lyre Cohen, we called out David Kenner, we called out Jerry Heller, we called out Jimmy Iovine, we called out any and everybody by name. No different than we're calling out Diddy and Birdman and Snoop Dogg and everybody else by name. No one's running from anything. We talked about BlackRock and Vanguard and how this is all connected to something bigger and nihilism. But as black people, there's no other group, and this is why, for all of you want to signal out some other group, there's no other group claiming hip hop as their identity. We did that. Other people may make money off of hip hop, but they don't run around and say, hip hop is us. Hip hop is Italians. Hip hop is Irish. Hip hop represents Jewish people. Hip hop represents what? No one does that. We do it. And that's on us. And so, again, people can do all the whataboutisms and all the blame this group and that group or whatever, but we have run around defending hip hop like our life depends on it, rather than evaluating hip hop for what it is. It's a minstrel show that we get checks for starring in. And if you think that from Jay-Z to even 50 Cent, who's having the greatest time on Twitter and social media clowning Diddy, but these guys ain't no different than Diddy. They've been going to the same parties, they've been hosting similar parties, and they've been making music that celebrate sexual fluidity, sexual promiscuity, violence, drug dealing, the worship of drug dealers. And then we keep saying, that's us, that's black culture. And so all these other groups that you once signaled out, they're not doing that. We are. And at some point, we have to deal with the fact that we adopted a sick, destructive identity, and I'm not distancing myself from it. I loved rap music, bought it, partied to it, the whole, friends with rappers. But at some point, it's just like, again, me and Ronald McDonald were best friends. I broke off the friendship because I realized it's killing me. We got to do the same thing with hip hop.
Yeah, and you're right. We take so much ownership of it. I remember when Fat Joe came out and he was trying to say how much, I guess, Hispanics play in the original hip hop. And people were so angry, like, look at him, he's trying to culturally appropriate. This is black. This is us. This is us. So if we know that it's us, when it comes down to the bad things, we have to accept that it's us too. Stop lying. And, black people love to say, oh, I keep it real. Oh, I keep it 100. Well, if you do, then you have to be honest and say it's us that has been promoting this death culture to our own people. We glorify drugs. We glorify promiscuity. We glorify the gang lifestyle. We do that. And then when someone gets killed behind it, especially if they're killed by someone white, all of a sudden it's white supremacy. It's someone else's fault. Well, perhaps if they weren't trying to live up to your standards in your music, they wouldn't have even been in that place to start with. And I'm so happy that the cards are starting to fall. I hope everybody involved comes down. I appreciate when Cat Williams said all the deviants were going down in 2024, but I hope that doesn't mean that we won't get the Epstein files. Let's get the little ones as well. So I want everybody attached
I just got that.
to pushing pedophilia on these children and this type of culture. I want them all to go down. Let's let the truth come out for real. And I do believe that, when it comes to them raiding Puffy's house, some of that I think is to cover up. for those at the tip top. And I don't know if he's going to take the fall or he's going to, what's going to happen. But I do believe there's going to be some people covered up. I see where Prince Harry has been named. It's going to be some big names to come out of this, but I'm waiting to see who actually goes down.
So I think a lot of who actually goes down depends on how Diddy handles this. And so on one spectrum, because people are calling him the Jeffrey Epstein of the rap music industry, that's what they're calling Diddy. And we know how Epstein allegedly handled it. He Epsteined himself. He killed himself allegedly. And so I've seen people question, like, is Diddy going to exit this universe? Now, he's already on the run, allegedly flew somewhere, or maybe he's in hiding. I don't know, But take Bill Cosby and R. Kelly. R. Kelly's going to be in prison, it looks like, for forever, for his natural life, or for quite a long. He'll get out. He'll be so old, it'll be wanting worth getting out. Bill Cosby did time. And so some people are asking, do you think, and I'm asking you, do you think Diddy confronts this? Or do you think Diddy unalives himself, or someone unalives Diddy before he can perhaps drop names?
I definitely think there's a chance he could be Epstein for sure. I do know that we have this whole no snitching thing, but if we look back, and you said this in the show last week on who his father was, he very well may actually drop names, but I just don't know if he's going to drop those big names, or if he does, do they now have the evidence to support it or to back it up? And we'll never know, because if they went in there and they raided his homes and they got these so-called video proof of all of these politicians and elite people, he could drop names, but would anybody really believe him? I think that some of us who are paying attention know that it's true. We believe that some of these people actually did what people are saying they did. But will they be penalized for it? I'm not hopeful. After seeing what we have been seeing with Jeffrey Epstein and them getting Maxwell, but not taking anybody else, where's the list? Why is it taking so long? Why haven't these people been prosecuted? I just don't get it. And so I think some little people will go down. Diddy may be Epstein, but just leave. Mary's, what's the 411, my life, I'm going to protect that music at all costs, but everything else.
I'm going to circle to that here in a second, but one other thing I wanted to say about the whole Epstein deal, and go a little bit conspiratorial, and I mentioned this in passing earlier, that let's say they went in to raid Diddy, knowing that there's about to be a change perhaps in the Department of Justice and with the Attorney General because of this election in 2024. And so perhaps they do this raid of Diddy now under the Biden administration so that these people can't be exposed. Because you got to remember, Barack Obama's pictured with Diddy, Diddy out basically campaigning for the Biden administration and, demonizing Donald Trump. He was in bed with the left. He allegedly has cameras in every room in his house. There are people that say that was his job, that was his role, to get compromising information on powerful people, and the music industry and people in power could use that against them. And so this is where the conspiratorial mind comes in and says, yeah, they went in now under the Biden administration to do a cleanup, because if it happened during the Trump administration, there could be some powerful leftists exposed here, because the left, from Obama on down, they climbed all the way in bed with the rap community. and all the way. Again, I know Trump is friends with Lil Wayne and all these other guys, but I just don't think, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe was Trump partying with these guys? Though, again, you got Kamala Harris, got Glorilla and every other rapper in the world at her house, partying with her. They're throwing 50-year anniversary. I mean, just the White House threw a 50-year anniversary party for hip hop. It's mind-blowing to me, knowing what this music is and what it represents. So, but I did want to, one other thing, just because I know you're a music aficionado. One of the things that I find fascinating here is that, let's take an R. Kelly, and let's even take a Bill Cosby. Their work, their art, as it relates to Bill Cosby with Fat Albert and The Cosby Show, and R. Kelly's music was so good that even with their problems, their art has survived. And people will still listen to R. Kelly because the music is just that good and it's irresistible. And some of it actually had a message and a soul to it, but it was just that good. Obviously, The Cosby Show and Fat Albert and Bill, it's just so good that I'm just sorry. The Cosby Show is going to be good. I don't care what they accuse Bill Cosby of. I don't think that's the case for Diddy. His legacy, because rap music, most of it is so devoid of soul and an authentic message. I just don't think his music is going to survive. I just don't think he has much of a legacy to stand on. And I would even differentiate. Let's say that the truth all the way comes out on a Tupac Shakur. Because again, I believe he was a plant and he was installed, and we're going to actually get more into that on this show. Not today, but moving forward. But Tupac had Dear Mama, Keep Your Head Up, Brenda Got a Baby. Tupac's got music that, I'm just sorry, it stands the test of time. It had a soul to it. It had a message to it. You know, it just wasn't always ambitions of a rider or, you know, some of the other stuff that we listen to while working out. I just don't know if Diddy actually has a legacy to stand on beyond that he threw parties and he sold cheap vodka and he sex trafficked. I think that's his legacy.
Yeah, I think Diddy could put on a shiny suit and dance himself into obscurity, and no one would actually care. I think his contribution, our artists such as Mary J. Blige, the music that he produced for her that we love, but no one cares. And I think this is what Suge Knight was telling us years ago. Like, all you are is this producer that dances around in your artist video. I can't think of a song that he has that I would say, oh, you know, I gotta hear Puffy's voice. I need to hear him. I thought I told you that. We won't stop. I could go my whole life without hearing that. But I love some of the artists that he produced. And so I definitely think he could go down and people would not blink an eye because it was never about him. He made it about himself, but he was never the star. It was the people that he actually did music for. You know, without Mary, he would not have who he wouldn't be Puffy. Like, we don't care about him that much. It was the artist that he put out, but he always made it about himself. He never really gave them the credit that they deserve. He always wanted to be the star, and we're about to see that star fall, and I don't think people will lose one night of sleep over it.
It's funny, Shemeka, for me, when I think of Mary J. Blige, P. Diddy never crosses my mind. I don't think of her music as related to him. When I think of Diddy, only person I think about is Biggie. And I'll say the same thing as it relates to Biggie. And I know that's going to irritate a lot of people, but again, I don't think Biggie's music stands the test of time. It's good to party to, but there's no message. Biggie's not connected to any message. More money, more problems. Yeah.
That's proven true.
My favorite Biggie song is probably "I'm Going Back to California." I'm going back to Cali, or what is it called? Anyway, but I don't need none of that in my life. But anytime I would hear "Dear Mama," or I was even thinking of take even a nut like Kanye. That man's always going to be able to stand on Jesus Walks. That's a song with a message that will stand. And I don't even like the N-word that was in it, but I got to say, that's a song that will stand the test of time. It says something. I just don't think Biggie and Diddy did any music that actually stands for anything other than party and BS.
Yeah, he was all up and through What's the 411 and My Life. And I love those albums of Mary. And so when I think of those two, I do know that he did a lot of work on them. But again, as long as we have her, I do not care one lick about what happens to him because she was the star. Again, I think he made it about himself, but people are tired of it. He always wanted to be in the forefront. He was never one of these humble producers that we have. It was always about him. I suppose if he had written the song, I know R. Kelly wrote for Michael Jackson, and now I can't even think of the name of this. You Are Not Alone, maybe. Puffy would have been up in that video making it about himself had he been the producer of that. And it's like, sir, sit down. We're sick of seeing you dance around. I was waiting for Suge Knight to get to him. Now that we finally have this day, I'm so glad. Puppy, please sit down. I don't want to see your Batman costume. I don't want to see you dressed as the Joker. I don't want to see you promoting another baby or girl or goodbye. Sayonara, arrivederci. Just leave me, Mary, and I'm fine.
Thank you, Shemeka. Great job as always. Appreciate it. We're going to bring in Professor D, Delano Squires, next. Welcome back to Beef. As I walk you through my top 50 media beefs of all time. Yeah, I'm an equal opportunity beefer. It's like, Randy, are you asleep at the wheel? Big lips are in style. I'd love to squash this beef. I mean, I was not real happy at all. I was less than thrilled. I was displeased. And now we have beef. All right, welcome back. Time for some Professor D. Let's roll out to Washington, D.C. and bring in Delano Squires. Man, do we need Delano's take on this. D, I'm going to start here. My argument is that we're all kind of making fun of Diddy, and I get the humor in this, but it's really actually not funny, and that there's some realizations we need to make about hip hop and what Diddy actually stands for and reveals about commercial rap music. And we're cracking jokes, and then eventually we're gonna move into what about Brett Favre, or what about Donald Trump, or what about Jeffrey Epstein, because we don't want to actually deal with what we, and I'm talking about myself and everybody, have celebrated for decades, which is actually a poison. Commercial hip hop is a poison, and Diddy reveals that to us. And I'm wondering if we're gonna stay in the denial and go into defense mode about Diddy.
I think what'll happen is something that'll split the difference, right? I think I could easily see Diddy being cast off, right? Sort of culturally speaking, and particularly with the allegations of sexual assault, sex trafficking, right? And particularly if these are young black women who we're talking about. I think it'll be easy for Diddy to go the way of R. Kelly. But I think there will be some level of protection around sort of the culture itself to say, well, this is the exception, not the norm, right? Diddy just got too drunk on power, but we don't really stand for this as a hip hop community, and then go back to turning up the music to saying, shoot this N and smack this B. So I could easily see something like that happening, because I do think that there's been a reckoning to some extent with these types of charges, even within the black community. So for instance, R. Kelly didn't get nearly the type of sort of public support in his most recent go round as, a Michael Jackson or an O.J. Simpson, who both had certain types of allegations leveled at them. And I don't think Diddy is going to get that support either. I think he'll be hung out to dry. And given the complex set of allegations, he'll be hung out to dry. But it's like you let him die in order to save the culture, more broadly speaking.
And so, is that the right thing to do? Or does what Diddy's involved in say more about hip hop than we're comfortable admitting?
Hey, Jason, I think this part is tough, and particularly for the black community. I'm gonna be clear and specific, and I know, some of my last remarks around illness, metaphorically speaking, within the culture, I think some people may have misunderstood what I was saying. But hip hop culture has become so ingrained within the broader sort of black cultural narrative that anything that threatens to rip it out root and branch is going to be resisted at first. But ultimately it has to be. What we are imbibing on a daily basis is violence, it's degradation, it's drug abuse, it's the pornification of black culture, it's disrespect, of black women, is all types of sexual deviancy. And that's just the stuff that you see and hear in the music, let alone the things that people have been saying for a long time go on behind the scenes in the culture that allow certain people to ascend to particular heights. And I don't think that it's possible for this to continue to grow and sort of black America, generally speaking, to continue to flourish. Because, Jason, there's a reason that no other ethnic group, however you want to define it or draw the parameters, there's a reason that no other ethnic group's primary cultural output is this type of, music, right, or culture. And there's a reason that other cultures say we don't even allow these types of stereotypes to take root. And one of the things I've said to you on the show before is that I've seen rappers apologize for complimenting the Jewish community on its business acumen. There are guys who are afraid to say, my money is kosher, but they'll turn around and talk about killing the entire neighborhood, killing their ops. They'll talk about disrespecting women in the most, profane ways possible. But they're afraid and will actually apologize and say, oh, I'm sorry I offended that community. Or I'm sorry I offended the LGBTQIA2S plus community. But have no problem talking about the murder and mayhem that they would inflict on their own neighborhood. So, no, I think it needs this type of thing, what we're talking about, the types of music and musical output and culture that we're talking about has to be ripped up root and branch. It cannot be allowed to survive. And I'm glad that you dug in the crates and brought out the tapes of C. Dolores Tucker and Calvin Butts, because at that point, Black America had the poison up to its lips, and they were saying, guys, do not drink it. And they were trying to smack it out of our hands. But from the outside, it looked like someone who was well-fed trying to take bread out of the mouths of somebody who was starving. But they knew that music and those messages were poison, and they were actually trying to help us. But for whatever reason, the youth movement at that particular time said, no, she's trying to harm us. And that's how, as you referenced, Tupac ended up making a song even degrading his elders and saying, basically F Dolores Tucker. And we have been drinking that for the last 35 years, and we can see the results as clear as day.
And so I just had this discussion with Shemeka, and you referenced uh, uh, Jewish people, and that's where I see this conversation going very quickly. Is people are going to say, well, "What about the Jews?" And their involvement in the music industry, and one of the things I just was talking with Shemeka about, and just refreshing people. If you didn't watch Thursday and Friday shows, we talked about people individually and their roles in the music industry, from Lyre Cohen to Jerry Heller to Clive Davis and all of that. But one thing that I think we're going to have to come to grips with is there are people that have made money off the music who did not say and did not promote that, hey, this music represents me and my ethnic group and the group I identify with. We did that as Black people. And we have to deal with that. And so it's like, I don't want to hear the distract at right now. And again, we want to, because I'm going to keep pounding on this subject and the whole music industry as a whole overall. But just for today, as it relates to Diddy and this conversation, I don't want to hear the distractions of what about this group or what about that group, because we're the only group that said, you know what, this music defines us, and we have to deal with that. Other groups did not do that, won't do that, won't allow themselves to be defined that way. Why did we, and if we can't cop to that, we can never uproot what needs to be uprooted.
Right, and I only brought up that example for one reason, which is to say, it's not to say that rappers don't have any standards. What I'm saying is they have standards when it comes to external communities, and part of the reason that they don't have standards when it comes internally is because we, generally speaking, do not force them to have standards. And one of the things I said, the last time I was on the show is that I've never seen a rapper's career collapse because he promoted pimping or drug dealing or murder or he was a shooter or talked about any other self-destructive or degenerate behavior. That's never been the case. And the only times that it happens is, again, when he offends communities outside the Black outside the Black community, or if he or she articulates a particular set of political positions that are right of center. Then it's, now we can all pile on. Then the root will say, oh, we need to start thinking about Sexy Red, and she's a negative influence on the Black community. But let me say something else, Jason, because I agree with your point. I'm not one of these people that says, well, what about the record executives, right? I don't start there. And the reason I don't start there is because, and I say this as a father, if I met a guy and his children were up for sale to a group of perverts and ne'er-do-wells, to a bunch of pedophiles, would I question what type of man would buy a child? Absolutely. But the first question I ask myself is, what type of father would sell his child? So I always put the responsibility right where it needs to be with the person or people who have the greater sense, or should have the greater sense, of obligation and responsibility to the community in question. And in fact, one of the comparisons that I've made is, because people, I think, have a hard time seeing how this mentality operates in other places. When I see the women who started the company Race to Dinner, it's an Indian lady named Sarai Rao and a middle-aged Black woman. I can't remember her name. I think her last name is Williams. But these two women charge white liberal women about $2,500. And the women, the white liberals, pay these women to come to their house to tell them how racist, how bigoted, and how backwards they are. And they sit there and they take it, and they go through these struggle sessions. And again, the two women of color are making good bank by insulting these white ladies in their houses. Now, do I question the two, quote unquote, women of color? Of course. I'm like, this is a grift, this is trash. But my first thing is to say, what type of person would pay somebody thousands of dollars to come to their house to insult them? And if that's the type of embarrassment, the self-flagellation, the self-debasement that white liberal women want to engage in, then of course it's going to be somebody to say, well, I'll take your money for it. And in the same respect, if the black community wants to engage in self-debasement and self-destruction, and we want to put that out as an art form to the world, and we say that this art form reaches across the globe, and it's a multi-billion dollar, it's used for multi-billion dollar marketing campaigns, of course somebody's going to say, okay, I'll take that deal. If you all want to debase yourselves, somebody here is going to be more than willing to make money off of it, and we will shake hands as partners, and a handful of you guys will make a ton of money, and a handful of us will make even more money, and that's a deal that we can live with. So yeah, I'm with you. I put the responsibility in the house first. We start in the house, and then from there, once we get the house straight, and all mom and dad and all the siblings are on the same page, now we can go out and fight externally. But if there's disorder within the house, I'm not even trying to hear what the neighbors have to say.
D, I hate to ask you to speculate because it's not really, it doesn't fit what you do, but I just want to further this conversation in regards to Diddy is if they apprehend him, turns himself in, if there's charges brought, this could turn into another version of O.J. Simpson. And again, you were probably very young in the early mid-90s when the O.J. Simpson thing was going on. I watched the entire O.J. Simpson trial and was immersed in it. And it was quite a distraction and quite a circus. And you know, I saw that whole thing exploited for people to build television careers and drive ratings and all that other stuff. And I'm sitting here today wondering, like, is that where this thing's going to head with Diddy? And then there's the other part of me that says, well, Diddy had cameras in every room. He's connected to the powerful and the elite. There's rumors Prince Harry was at the deal. And it's like, part of me is like, he's pictured friends with Barack Obama. I'm not saying Obama went to the parties, but you know, he's campaigned for Joe Biden. T.D. Jakes went to the party. I'm sitting there going, well, I wonder if he'll be Epstein because this needs to go away. They can't turn this into OJ because OJ didn't have anybody he could point fingers to and say, well, actually, Roger Staubach did the murder or Emmett Smith did the murder, whereas Diddy could start naming other high profile. So I'm asking you to and I know it's not your strength, but where do you think this heads? Do they have to eliminate Diddy, or do they let it spill out and a bunch of names get dropped and we have something far more explosive than just Diddy?
I mean, that is a good question. And I remember the O.J. Simpson trial. I didn't follow it because I was a early teenager. I remember it preempting the NBA Finals. I definitely remember that. And I think that was 93 or 94. But I mean, it'll be interesting to see how it shakes out. You know, because as you said, in order to be valuable, you have to offer someone who's higher up the food chain than you are. And some of the allegations sound as if that is possibly the case. I certainly pray that Diddy is not Epstein, so to speak, because I think there's value in having this boil burst and all the pus, the cultural, the spiritual, the economic, the societal pus to ooze out for everyone to see, so that everybody says, "Wow, I didn't know this person was involved," or so on and so on and so forth. So now the OJ angle, I mean, I'll say this: OJ Made in America, the documentary that came out a number of years ago, was actually extremely helpful in filling in holes for people like me who were a little younger, didn't follow the trial. And one of the things that I saw is how the sort of cultural history of Black Americans, particularly as it relates to race, is so easily weaponized against us. where somebody like O.J. Simpson, who spent probably the bulk of his adulthood saying, get me as far away from these Negroes as possible, understood that if I paint myself sympathetically as a black man who's being done in by the racist LAPD, just like all the other black men in American history who've been lynched and hung and castrated, that I could be sympathetic to a black audience and a black jury. And that's exactly what he did. And I think you see more of sort of Fannie Willis's trials moving in the OJ direction, where you can turn your bad behavior and make yourself a martyr, particularly by playing up to the black church. As I said, I don't think Diddy is going to have that available, especially if some of these allegations involve.
Why don't you think he'll have that available?
Well, one, the early '90s was a different time. O.J. Simpson was accused of killing his white ex-wife and her white lover, as opposed to, again, I see Diddy as more analogous with R. Kelly, right, where Diddy is being accused of doing things against particularly black people and black women. So I don't think he'll have as much sympathy in that sense. I also think the advent of Me Too makes it a lot more difficult for the black community. And let's be clear, in times past, the people who would have been most sympathetic to a Diddy would be black men. But the black men who write in the public sphere today have been culturally neutered. So they can't even stand up and advocate sort of a robust black masculinity. So they're definitely not going to be putting their reputations on the line to defend Diddy's sort of type of behavior, right? These guys can't even tell Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion to put the BBLs away. So they have no space to say anything in support of Diddy.
I'm not saying this as a joke. I'm not saying this as a joke, but they're saying Diddy is bisexual and or gay, because I don't really believe in bisexuality.
Right.
But gay. And so Jonathan Capehart and the people on MSNBC, Don Lemon, and all that. Yeah, these guys could have been at some Diddy parties and may have some sympathy and may turn this into, into some degree, like there's a homophobia going on as it relates to some of the backlash to Diddy.
I do think that angle could end up complicating the narrative, because even when I started to see certain things come out, and I saw Meek Mill was going back and forth with a guy named DJ Academics online, and people were saying everybody's focusing on whether Meek Mill is gay or not, and not the allegations of sex trafficking and sexual abuse. So I do think there's a way in which some people would say, oh, the backlash to Diddy is really about black men being sensitive about their sexuality and unwilling to sort of embrace a broader sense of gender identity and sexual orientation. I do see that being the case, but the Jonathan Capeharts and the Don Lemons will end up taking that and saying, we need to defend black, gay, trans, and queer people, not we need to defend Diddy and his behavior. So what I'm saying is, again, in the same thing like you can see from the hip hop writers, they will cast him off. They'll throw the proverbial baby out and say, no, let's keep the bathwater. We want to retain the parts of hip hop culture that we like. We want to retain the parts of LGBTQ culture that we like. And we want to paint Diddy as a bad representative of both of those things. And in that way, they can do both at the same time, right? They can defend their camp while casting him off and saying, we will sacrifice him to the gods of the culture for them to do with him what it is that they want. And the more we tarnish his reputation, the less credible he becomes if he ever chooses to point that bullseye and point his gun at any of us.
Did not prepare you for this question, but obviously you can handle it. Is there an opportunity here for those of us that are believers to take the Diddy story and have a conversation with young people? And I'm really speaking about ministers in the church and elders or whatever. Is there an opportunity to take this Diddy story and have a conversation with young people about Like this radical materialism, this hip hop, it's opened the door for us to really have a more fruitful and substantive conversation about the poisons of hip hop.
Absolutely. 100%. And Jason, it's not just the poisons of hip hop. It is the poisons of the entire, and I don't want to paint this sort of politically, because when we use terms like left and right, we're talking sort of politics. But the sort of anti-Christ, anti-God, anti-nature agenda. And when I'm talking about nature, I'm not talking about worshiping the earth. I'm talking about the fact that God, as creator and designer, gave nature its own nature. And one of those, part of nature's nature is the fact of that we can reproduce after our own kind, right? That God doesn't need every 9 months to come out and zap and say, okay, now you can have a baby. Zap, now you can have a baby. It's like, no, there's something in us that allows human beings, men and women, to come together to create life. There's also, right, there's a desire for our generations to propagate, right? I think there's an opportunity to talk about all of this stuff, because every time the so-called progressives, the people who believe in Darwinian evolution, the people who deny the existence of God, every time they put their cards on the table and they say, no, you guys talk about man-woman marriage, right? Traditional marriage, biblical marriage, one man, one woman for one lifetime in a one flesh union. No, we believe in polyamory. And then you turn around and you read the accounts and it says, oh, I was in a polygamous relationship and now I'm depressed and I miss my family. You say, okay, well, that didn't work. There's people who say, no, don't sell your soul for a few coins, because it's ultimately going to come back and hurt you. And for 40 years, we've been saying, no, sell your community out, right? It'll make a few people rich. And then when you're rich, you can come back. You can have a sports league. You can give out turkeys like Nino Brown on Thanksgiving. And now you're like, well, actually, selling your soul comes with a cost. And it's a cost that most people do not and cannot pay, right? I think there are all of these things. The notion that that feminism benefits women, right? I read a piece. It was an old piece from Alice Walker's daughter, Rebecca Walker. This was in 2008. I read this piece after reading something that The Root alleged that there was a sexual relationship between a romantic relationship between Alice Walker and Tracy Chapman or something like that. And Rebecca Walker talked about how she stopped talking to her mother because when her mother found out she was pregnant with, her son, would have been Alice Walker's grandson, she basically felt like her mom thought that it was a mistake, that she was having a baby, and that she was betraying the principles of feminism by having a child, which made Rebecca Walker think, well, did my mother resent me as a child? And after her parents divorced and she had to live on two different coasts, it really painted Alice Walker as a despicable person. And I get a lot of people don't like her for how she portrayed black men in Color Purple. But for me, I'm just like, what type of mother would press this ideology into her daughter? Now, I think they've reconciled to this point, and that's good. It's good to see parent and child reconcile. But it was just another thing that told me, every time progressives tell me that they've got a better plan than what God has articulated in his written word, every single time they do that, they fail. I've never seen a peaceful, contented, radical feminist. I've never seen a peaceful, contented person who's cut off the body parts that God has given them. And I've never seen a peaceful, contented person who said, selling my soul is worth it. They always exhibit some type of spiritual torment. So I agree 1,000%. This is a perfect opportunity for particularly pastors to wrestle the mantle of moral formation that they used to have in previous generations and take it away from the radical materialist, from the hip hop artist, from the journalist, from the activist, from the radical revolutionary professors, all of those people who've been shaping Black America's morals and outlook and worldview and values for the better part of close to 70 years. I do think it's time for pastors who are in their right mind, because some of those radicals are pastors themselves, but pastors who are in their right mind, I think, have an opportunity to say, you guys have tried everything for the last 6 decades. It's time to come home to the God who created you and to worship him the way he created you to worship him.
The other opportunity here, particularly because of T.D. Jakes' connection to Diddy, because many pastors, I believe, and many believers, lock myself into this, we went through this delusion that the creators of this poisonous music, well, they're really harmless. That's what they make that music, but they're really harmless. And they make so much money and they donate to the church, but there's actually a good side to them. And I think now there's an opportunity to say, no, you can't make this form of music and have this be your career and be a harmless person. It corrupts your soul. When you're making music that denigrates yourself, others, when it promotes a level of violence and predatory nature, you actually harm yourself as well and become harmful for everything around you. And so, again, this whole thing has blown up in T.D. Jakes' face, and most ministers need to say, but for the grace of God, there go I. And I know many of them will pretend like, oh, that could have never been me. I would have never hung out and been pictured with Diddy. I'm not so sure. I don't buy that. And T.D. Jakes got out ahead of himself. Other people have done it in prior. I mean, again, obviously the guy you guys love to beat up, and a Mike Todd. Do you think he couldn't have been T.D. Jakes?
Right.
And ministers with much smaller churches than Mike Todd could do that. And so I think it's important we have that discussion as well, that come up out of the denial that Rick Ross and Jay-Z and Snoop and all these guys can promote this level of wickedness, but they're really kind of harmless. No, they're not. So I'll give you the final say, D, and then we'll get out of here.
And the crazy thing is, Jason, is again, part of this has to come back to us within the Black community and the standards that we set for ourselves. Because I remember, I think it was earlier, in the summer last year, when was a guy named Jason Aldean, when he had the song "Try This in a Small Town." He just referenced BLM, and everybody freaked out. Oh, he wants to bring violence on Black Americans and activists. Now, the same people who said that over an allusion to something, he didn't say Black people, he didn't say anything about that. These same people think that you can be pumping, kill the N-word, smack the B, smack the H-word. You can slide credit cards down women's backsides. You can spray them with Moet, while in bikinis, pull down the bikini tops, so on and so on and so forth. And that they think that you can sow that into a culture and water it and give it light for 35 years, and that nothing is going to grow from that. This doesn't make any sense. And I think part of it is a broader internal community conversation about why we as Black folk have standards that are so much higher for white people than we do for our own community. Because if Eminem had showed up to the 2005 VMAs with 2 Black women on dog collars with their breasts exposed and so on and so forth, instead of Snoop Dogg, he would have never sold another record, right? If Machine Gun Kelly was the one who exclusively used Black women in his videos and was grabbing their breasts and sliding credit cards down their backsides, he would never make another music video. But for whatever reason, when we do these things to ourselves, we say, oh, that's no big deal. So yeah, I think there needs to be a larger conversation about that. And on the spiritual element, there needs to be, and no pun intended, a come to Jesus moment for the Black church. And one of the reasons that I enjoyed the fact that you have, Virgil Walker and Pastor Anthony and Chuck Knox on here is because we need to get back to understanding that you can be a Black man who preaches the full counsel of God, gospel preaching and Bible teaching, and you don't have to be a T.D. Jakes or the Mike Todd or a Jamal Bryant or a William Barber, because so many of the most prominent black preachers, and I'm talking about prominent in terms of name recognition and sort of, their space in the public sphere, are completely compromised. These are men who are agents of Satan, who will take a clear instruction. God made them male and female, he created them, and turn that around and say, oh no, God made transgender. Just look at his pronouns. Sometimes it says Father God, sometimes it says Mother God. God was gender fluid. So these people, as I said, are agents of Satan, and they need to be called out and rebuked publicly, because the black church, in many respects, and you know what I'm talking about when I say that, has sold its soul and lost its way. And that's why so many of them are bootlickers for the left. They will invite Lori Lightfoot into the pulpit on a Sunday morning. I'm not sure if her 6'5" wife was in attendance, and they'll call her Auntie Lori. Oh, we love Auntie Lori. Now, my thing is this. Anybody should be able to come through the church doors, but they should all hear the same message, and that should be a gospel presentation. They should all be encouraged to repent and believe, not get up on the stage and say, Chicago, it's good to be here, and I love being at this church, and then the next minute go and push anti-God policy. So yeah, there's a way in which the black community has to have a come to Jesus moment, and more specifically the black church, because the black church, as we culturally understand it, will go the way of the white mainline church in New England, where in 20 years, it's going to be all drag queen story hour and pride flags and all types of other nonsense, because it would have been so spiritually neutered that it will be of no, particularly biblical good. And it'll just be, as I said, drag queen story hour, souls to the polls, backpack drives, and food pantries. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the last three of those things, but the NAACP can run a backpack drive. The Urban League can run a food pantry, right? But only one institution is saying that there's only one way that man can be saved, and that's by faith and trust in Jesus the Christ. And he is the only means to salvation. And the black church doesn't get back to preaching that and teaching that and believing that, it'll be dead in 20 years.
Thank you, D. Great
you,
job
Jason.
as always. That's tomorrow, I hear, and that means we'll see you tomorrow. Tomorrow, I do want to say, we'll have Anthony and Virgil, and we'll get into the Christ is King controversy that has, the Daily Wire in uproar. So we'll see you tomorrow.
Came like a fighter, striking like a ladder, making all this moves for freedom. I want freedom. No negotiation, my sister, no relation. We all just wanna have freedom. Sitting on a corner, never been alone. I'll break my back for freedom. Blessed, we are living, get back. We are receiving, no deceiving. We all wanna be free. We want freedom. I wanna be. I just want. I wanna be. I just want. I wanna be. I just want.